Magic Talks Daily Dialogue with Peter Williams. Here's an interview you may have missed.
Andrew, good morning.
Yes, good morning, Peter, yes.
So thank you for joining us this morning. A lot of people not particularly confident of the government's cybersecurity, but we can talk about that in general in a moment. First, can you give me the latest about Waikato, and when do we expect the systems to be working properly again?
Yeah, I think that's the big question. Last week the estimate was that it could take up to a week. It clearly is going to take longer, and I suspect it'll be more than a week, possibly 2 weeks, even 3 from now. That was why yesterday the officials committee was stood up to make sure that both the DHB and the Ministry of Health, who are supporting the DHB, had all the resources and the help they need, and also that all other DHBs are taking the proper measures to ensure that their IT systems have the relevant protections and so on in place, so we don't see a repeat of this anywhere else. And
there's definitely, absolutely no chance of any ransom being paid?
No, we don't do that. Any attack on a public system calling for ransom, we simply will not be paying. We will work on fixing up the systems, supporting staff to do so. Obviously, there will have to be a review. How did the situation arise in the first place? But we will not be paying ransom.
It's actually quite fortunate, isn't it, when you think about it, in a situation like this, it's quite fortunate that we have siloed IT systems at different DHBs around the country. Imagine if it was Health New Zealand, Andrew, and just one big linked-up integrated system that the hackers could get into. That could be a real problem, couldn't it?
We have big linked-up nationwide systems anyway, Inland Revenue, ACC, MSD, all dealing with literally millions of people's files and data and what have you. So I'm not fussed about that. I think what you do is, with your IT systems, no matter how big they are, you design them in a way so that you mitigate the potential for harm. You make sure that you're doing all the basic maintenance, putting patches in place when vendors require it, making sure that the latest protective technology is installed when that is available, all those sorts of measures. So I think there's plenty you do to make systems resilient, no matter how big they are.
Do police get any leads, or did they get any leads after the hacked information was sent to the media yesterday and the media quite responsibly handed it on to police? Did that help the police investigation?
Obviously, every bit of information helps, so that investigation is underway. But the advice to me is, both from the police and from the GCSB, is that it can take weeks to try to establish where the source of this might have come from. The reality about cyber attacks is that they are pretty sophisticated these days, so they cover their tracks in multiple different ways. So it often takes a while to unravel where it might have come from.
Is it most likely that it's come from overseas?
Yeah, look, I don't want to speculate. The nature of these things is that they are more likely than not come from offshore, but look, we won't know till we know, following a proper investigation and review.
Can we talk then about the wider issue of cybersecurity in this country? And I don't know whether or not you've seen Melissa Lee's column this morning, which she's put on the Kiwi blog website. She said, "I've begged the government to uplift cybersecurity spending to proportionately match Australia's $1.6 billion investment into cyber resilience and give Parliament greater insight into the sector." After what's happened at places like the NZX, the Health Research Council, Reserve Bank, you can hardly disagree with her, can you, Andrew?
Look, she makes a very good point, and Melissa is one of these MPs who's very skilled in this area. I would just say it's a pity that she didn't say that to her colleagues when they were in government, because actually we saw a massive disinvestment in keeping our IT systems up to scratch. And you look at the health system alone, and just the level of, if you could describe it that way, underfunding in that system, which we're catching up. Last week's budget, we put another $300 million in just for IT, just to upgrade and build greater security and protection. That said, we have, and there's more that we can do, not just in the public sector, but the private sector as well. But I go back to the point, the way cyber offensive activity happens now, it is increasingly sophisticated. Every day there are attacks, and every day there are new forms of attack, new approaches being taken. So trying to keep ahead of it is a huge task. That's why you make sure that the systems that you've got, you're putting every possible available protection in place. But better still, even if an attack does get through, that you design your system in a way that means that you can mitigate the harm, so that the whole system is not brought down. You can withstand an attack in one part of it without compromising everything.
Yeah, but she says that cyber spending is scattered across various portfolios, business science and information, internal affairs, Prime Minister and Cabinet, the GCSB. Is it at the stage now, as systems get more and more sophisticated, Andrew, that we have to put it all under one umbrella, maybe have even a ministry or a department of cyber security?
Yeah, look, this is something that we may well have to consider, and there is work going on in this area. I think, from a practical point of view, what can afford us greater protection is that we onshore some of the services that are kind of routine around the world, cloud services in particular. And I know there are private investors lining up to do that sort of thing, and the government's got a role to play in encouraging that. We need to do that. Operating in the cloud offers huge protections that non-cloud services simply can't provide. So, if the question is, should there be a nationwide strategy for cybersecurity for both public and private? Yes, we do need that, and there is work underway on that at the moment.
Well, I've got you here, Andrew, and just finally, Ian McRae from Orion Health had a fairly significant pop at the government or the Ministry of Health last week for its $38 million spend on the COVID register. He reckoned he could have done it for much cheaper. Why was that particular job, that particular assignment, not put up for tender and given to an offshore company?
Look, I can't answer that precise question. I wasn't the minister at the time, except to say that we know, and this goes back to the whole health IT broadly for the country. One of the systems that has been particularly poor for some time is our immunisation register. So this project wasn't just building a system for the COVID-19 immunisation, but actually our entire immunisation program. So we needed to upgrade that system. So it was going to be significant investment. I'm not quite sure how the procurement for that operated, but it is also the case that there'll be some people who are somewhat disgruntled because they missed out. Can express sour grapes every now and again. I'm not saying that that's what has happened here, but frankly, I don't think it could be ruled out.
Yeah, $38 million, though, in a spend that wasn't put up for tender does seem a bit strange, particularly when the local guy says he could have done it for a fraction of the price. Just saying.
Yeah, look, a lot of people will say they could have done it much cheaper and all the rest of it. Look, I'm sorry, I can't help you with that because I just wasn't part of the decision-making for that tender to go out. I get the point that you're making, except to say the project wasn't just about a COVID-19 immunisation register. It was rebuilding our entire national immunisation register to upgrade that because that is unstable at the moment as well.
Understood. All right, Andrew, thank you so much for calling in and speaking to us this morning. A couple of weeks, maybe, we get this back up and running at Waikato?
Yeah, I think everybody's reluctant to put a time frame on it because time frames were given last week, and it clearly the job is much harder and longer than expected. The work is definitely underway. There's an army of IT folks, rebuilding those systems. They are working very, very hard and expeditiously. So just as soon as it can get back online, it will be.
Why wasn't it backed up?
Oh, no, it was backed up. I think the problem is that the Waikato DHB alone has, I think, something like 680 servers. They all have to be examined, sort of sanitised, and then the data that was backed up has to be then restored to those servers, and then the whole system brought back online very slowly. That's the process they're going through at the moment. Very good.
Good talking to you. Andrew Little, Health Minister.
Catch any interviews you missed on Rover or anywhere else you listen to podcasts. Peter Williams, 9 till noon, weekday mornings on Magic Talk.